My name is Mara Bennett, and until that Sunday in September, I thought I knew what safety looked like. It looked like my sister Claire texting me at noon to say one of her employees had an emergency at a wedding venue and she needed to drive across town to finish 40 centerpieces herself. It looked like her husband, Thomas, replying a minute later with a thumbs up when she wrote, "Thomas is home. Lily can stay with him a few hours." I remember reading the message during my lunch break at the pediatric clinic and feeling nothing. No worry, no hesitation, no instinct to leave work early. Thomas had been in our family for 9 years. He taught science at Millhaven Middle School and coached a travel baseball team on weekends. Parents liked him, kids liked him. He was the kind of man people simply called dependable. At 6 that evening, his SUV stopped in front of my house. Lily climbed out slowly. That was the first thing I noticed. My daughter normally arrived like she had been launched from somewhere. She would burst through the door talking before both feet crossed the threshold, explaining every snack, argument, joke, dog, cloud, and dinosaur fact she had encountered since breakfast. That evening, she walked. Thomas brought her backpack to the porch. "Long day," he said. "She's tired." He smiled the same easy smile I knew from birthdays and school fundraisers. I thanked him. There was nothing unusual enough to hold on to, except Lily. She wore a navy sweatshirt zipped almost to her chin. Even though September was still warm, the kitchen windows were open, and the air still felt warm against my arms. She kept both hands around the straps of her backpack. "Hey, Bug," I said. "Hi," one syllable. I waited. Nothing followed. At dinner, I made chicken, rice, and roasted carrots, a meal Lily usually ate without negotiating. She picked at the rice. I asked whether she and Aunt Claire had finished the ocean puzzle they had started the week before. "No." "Did you watch anything good?" "I don't know." I nearly asked a third question, then stopped. 11 years in pediatric nursing had taught me that adults often panic when children become quiet. We start filling the silence because silence frightens us. So I let hers exist. Before bed, I asked if she wanted to pick Grandma Helen. Usually, that suggestion worked like magic. My mother picked Lily up most Wednesdays after school. They bought frozen yogurt from a place near the library where Helen always pretended she wanted plain vanilla and then stole bites of Lily's toppings. During my divorce from Aaron 3 years earlier, Mom had been the person who kept spare pajamas at her house and knew which mornings I had early shifts. Lily shook her head. "Not tonight." That bothered me more than the dinner. Claire loved Lily too. She had invented Aunt Claire Saturdays when Lily was 4, long before I needed the help. Baking, craft stores, too many stickers, sometimes a movie Thomas barely watched while grading papers nearby. If someone had asked me that morning to list the safe adults in Lily's life, Claire, Thomas, and Helen would all have been near the top. That is the trouble with hindsight. Afterward, everything looks like a warning. Beforeward, ordinary things are just ordinary. Lily reached for her chocolate milk and knocked the glass with her wrist. It spilled across the table and soaked one sleeve of the navy sweatshirt. She froze. "It's okay," I said, grabbing a towel. "Go change, honey. I'll clean this." "No." The word came out too fast. I looked up. "Your sleeve is wet." "No." Not louder, just firmer. I put the towel down. For the first time that evening, Lily looked directly at me, and something in my chest changed shape. I still did not know what I was about to find. What frightened me was that when she finally stood to change, she did not argue anymore. She simply waited beside me, very still in our kitchen, as if she had been waiting all evening for one grown-up to notice what she could not yet explain. The moment Lily lifted her arms, I understood why she had spent the evening inside that sweatshirt. I did not understand everything. That distinction mattered. There were marks on her upper arm and along one leg that did not fit any ordinary explanation I could reach for quickly. 11 years in pediatric nursing had taught me not to diagnose a story from a single bruise, a single sentence, or a frightened expression. No mark proves abuse by itself. Children fall. Children collide with furniture. Children come home from playgrounds carrying evidence of lives lived at full speed. But there are patterns a pediatric nurse is not allowed to explain away. I felt my training move in before panic could. I kept my voice level. "Does anything hurt right now?" Lily shook her head. "Not now." I crouched so we were eye to eye. "What happened?" She looked past me toward the sink. For a second, I nearly made the mistake I had warned other parents about for years. Did he? I stopped. The unfinished question seemed to hang between us. I could hear my own instructors in my head. Do not supply the child with an answer. Do not turn fear into an interrogation. Let the child use their own words. I swallowed. "You do not have to tell me everything tonight," I said. "You can tell me what you want to tell me." Lily picked at the wet cuff of her sweatshirt. She said there had been paint. She said Thomas had gotten angry. She said there were rules when Aunt Claire was not home. Then she went quiet again. I did not ask what kind of rules. I did not ask how many times. I did not ask whether anything else had happened. Instead, I said the sentence I wanted her to remember longer than anything else from that night. "Thank you for telling me." Her eyes filled. But she did not cry. Then she asked, "Are you going to be mad at Aunt Claire?" The question caught me off guard. "Why are you worried about that?" Lily stared at the floor. "Because then everybody won't get to be a family." There are sentences. Children say that expose entire systems. Adults have spent years pretending are complicated. I took both of her hands. Keeping grown-ups together is not a 7-year-old's job. She looked at me carefully. "Okay?" "Okay," I said. "That is our job, not yours." At 8:14 p.m. I wrote down the time. At 8:22, I called the pediatric urgent care clinic and told the nurse what I knew and exactly what I did not know. By 9:05, Lily and I were sitting in an exam room painted blue. The clinician examined her gently, documented the findings, and asked only the questions necessary for medical care. She did not make Lily repeat every detail. When the examination ended, she stepped into the hallway with me and said what I already understood. "I am making a mandated report." I nodded. For the first time that night, someone else was carrying part of the weight. A child protection worker called while we were driving home. She explained that the next step would include a forensic interview at the Children's Advocacy Center, where Lily could speak with a trained interviewer instead of repeating the story to a parade of adults. When we got home, I called Aaron. He went silent, then said, "I'm driving to Thomas's house." "No, Mara, no." He put his hands on our daughter. "I know." "Then why are you stopping me?" Because I knew exactly what he wanted. He wanted movement, noise, something that felt like fatherhood in action. "Making you feel better cannot make this harder for her," he breathed into the phone. I could hear how much he hated the sentence. Finally, he said, "Tell me what you need. Stay available. Do not contact Claire or Thomas. Do not post anything. If they call, send them to me." A pause. "Okay." It was the first useful thing anger did for us that night. It listened. After Lily was asleep, I stood in front of the refrigerator with a yellow Post-it and wrote Children's Advocacy Center Wednesday, 9 I pressed it beneath the whale magnet Lily had chosen at the aquarium gift shop the summer before. Then I opened a notebook. Time, date, who called, what was said. I have always written things down when I am afraid. At 12:37 a. While checking the front door, I remembered the camera above it. I opened the app. There was a clip from Sunday evening. 26 seconds. I pressed play once. Then I called the detective. I watched the clip once because once was enough. The camera caught Thomas's SUV pulling up Sunday evening. Lily climbed out from the passenger side already crying, one hand pressed to her face. Thomas came around the vehicle, took hold of her upper arm, and steered her toward the porch faster than she wanted to move. The microphone picked up his voice clearly. "Stop crying. You know the rule." That was all. No dramatic confession. No scene anyone could mistake for a movie. Just 26 seconds that matched the part of Lily's story she had already told in her own words. I saved the file to my phone, then to cloud storage. When the detective called back, I followed his instructions and sent the clip through the secure link he provided. I did not send it to Claire. I did not send it to my mother. I did not post anything online. By Tuesday afternoon, Claire had already called Mom. I knew because Helen arrived at my house without texting first. My mother had always considered knocking a formality. After my divorce, she had been the person with a spare key. The person who picked Lily up every Wednesday. The person who kept strawberry yogurt because Lily hated vanilla unless there were sprinkles involved. That afternoon, I met her on the porch. "I want to see Lily," she said. "No." Her eyebrows lifted. "I'm her grandmother." "I know." "Then let me talk to her." No one is questioning her except the people handling this. My mother stared at me. "Claire says you're making this into something enormous." "I'm not discussing the case with Claire." "Then show me what you're making such a fuss over." I almost told her to leave. Instead, some old part of me wanted proof to do what my voice never could. I opened the medical portal and showed her one documented photograph and the clinician's summary. Helen looked for several seconds, long enough. Then she handed the phone back. "Kids get bruises. Mara," I said nothing. She adjusted her purse. "Don't turn this into another family crisis." Another. That word opened a door I had spent 20 years holding shut. When I was 15, I told my mother that an adult from our church had made me feel unsafe. There was no photograph, no video, nothing a doctor could measure. Only my words and the fact that I stopped wanting to attend an activity I had loved. Mom asked whether I was sure. Then whether I might have misunderstood. Then whether I understood what an accusation could do to a family in our church. By the end of that week, the problem had become my reaction, not what I had tried to tell her. I learned something that year, not the lesson Helen meant to teach me. I learned that words were fragile, paper was harder to argue with. That lesson followed me into nursing, into charting, into every time stamp and note I made after Lily came home. Helen stepped inside only far enough to retrieve a cardigan she had left before. On the refrigerator was a drawing Lily had made for her. 3 stick figures holding frozen yogurt beneath a blue whale. Grandma was written across the top in purple marker. Mom touched one corner. This was the woman who knew Lily's favorite toppings. The woman who had sewn the fin onto Lily's stuffed shark at midnight. The woman who had sat beside my daughter through a fever while I worked. Love had existed there. That was what made her choice hurt. Helen was not choosing between loving Lily and not loving her. She was choosing certainty over the possibility that someone she trusted had done something wrong. She took her cardigan. "At some point," she said, "you have to decide whether you want a family after this." The door closed behind her. My phone buzzed before I reached the kitchen. Claire, do you have any idea what this could do to Thomas? I read it twice. There was no second message. No. How is Lily? No, is she scared? Only Thomas. My family had begun choosing sides before anyone had asked about the child. And for the first time, I understood the investigation would not be the only thing I had to survive. The Children's Advocacy Center looked nothing like the place I had imagined. There were no metal detectors, no courtroom benches, no fluorescent hallway. It was a converted house with pale walls, a shelf of board games, and a basket of stuffed animals. A victim advocate named Teresa met us in the waiting room. She knelt beside Lily, introduced herself, and explained that another woman would talk with her in a room nearby. Then Teresa turned to me. You won't be in the interview, professionally. I knew why. Emotionally. I hated every word. The forensic interviewer will speak with Lily one-on-one, Teresa said. Members of the multidisciplinary team may observe from another room. That can include law enforcement and child protective services. We try to limit how many times a child has to tell the same story. I nodded like a nurse. Inside, I was a mother calculating the distance between two closed doors. So I wait here? You wait here. It was the first time since Sunday that protecting Lily required me to surrender control instead of tighten it. I watched her walk down the hallway, holding a plastic dinosaur Teresa had given her. She did not look back. The interview lasted less than an hour. I spent most of it staring at a clock and pretending not to count minutes. When Lily came out, Teresa did not give me a summary in front of her. She asked Lily whether she wanted juice, then helped her choose a sticker. Later, an investigator spoke with me privately. He did not tell me what another child had said. He did not open anyone else's file. He simply said, Lily mentioned some things that require us to ask additional questions about Mr. Wade's coaching environment. Other children? I can't discuss anyone else. That answer frightened me more than a yes would have. The next afternoon, Millhaven School District announced that Thomas had been placed on administrative leave pending investigation. That was all the district said. The town supplied the rest. By dinner, screenshots from a parent. Facebook group were arriving on my phone. Best teacher my son ever had. People rushed to judgment now. There has to be another side. A woman I recognized from school pickup wrote that Thomas had helped her son through a difficult year. Another parent asked everyone to remember that administrative leave was not a finding of guilt. None of those statements were irrational. That was what made them difficult to read. People were defending the version of Thomas they knew. I had known that version too. At 11:03 that night, a message request appeared from a name I did not recognize. Dana Klein. I almost ignored it. Then I read the first line. I don't know if you're the family people are talking about. My son played for Thomas 2 years ago. The next message came slowly. Dana said her son, Evan, had been on Thomas's travel team. After one tournament, he came home upset and told her Thomas had gotten too physical while correcting him. Dana complained to the school because Thomas was also a district employee. She sent me screenshots of the emails. The assistant principal had thanked her for reaching out. The concern had been categorized as a coaching conduct issue. The final email read, The coach has been reminded about appropriate physical boundaries. We consider the matter addressed. No child protection referral, no formal safety review, just addressed, Dana wrote. They didn't exactly call me crazy. They just made me feel embarrassing for asking. Then another message. My husband kept saying, Everybody loves him. Maybe you saw it wrong. I asked whether she still had the original emails. Everyone. Why did you keep them? The typing bubbles appeared, disappeared, then returned. Keeping them was easier than admitting I still didn't know if I was right. I sat at my kitchen table with my phone in one hand and my notebook open beneath the other. I understood Dana immediately. I had spent half my life believing paper could hold a truth steady when people could not. But something had changed. Until that night. I had thought Lily's case was the first proof anyone had been given. It wasn't. Dana had warned them 2 years earlier. Lily was not the first proof. She was the second warning. And suddenly, the question was no longer only what Thomas had done. It was who had received the first warning, what they had called it, and why calling it something smaller had been enough to make it disappear. Claire asked to meet me alone before Mom's family meeting. We chose a coffee shop halfway between our houses because neutral ground seemed kinder than either kitchen. Claire arrived without Thomas. For one hopeful second, I thought that meant something. She looked exhausted, no makeup, hair pulled back badly. She wrapped both hands around a paper cup she never drank from. Outside, rain tapped against the windows, and every few minutes Claire glanced toward the parking lot as if she expected Thomas to appear. I realized then that she was afraid too. Though not of the same thing I was, she was afraid of losing the life she had already decided was worth defending at home. "I'm not asking you to believe me over your husband," I said. Her shoulders dropped. I saw the relief happen before she could hide it. Then I finished. "I'm asking you to believe Lily long enough to let trained people finish asking questions." Claire looked down at the table. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then she said, "Do you understand what this accusation could do to his career?" That was the moment. Not when she defended him. Not when she cried. That question. Because I had handed her a place to stand where she did not have to choose between loving Thomas and protecting Lily. She stepped away from it anyway. That night, Claire posted in the family group chat. She wrote carefully, "Thomas had been misunderstood. Lily may have misunderstood discipline. I had been under stress since the divorce. Everyone should avoid gossip and pray for the family while things were handled privately." She never called me unstable. She did not need to. Polite language can do ugly work when everyone understands the suggestion. Replies came quickly, praying, "So sorry. Claire, this family has been through enough." I watched names appear beneath the message. Then one detail stopped me. Seen by Jenna, my cousin had read everything. She said nothing. 2 days later, Mom called. "Sunday, 2 o'clock. We need to sit down as a family." "I'm not bringing Lily. I didn't ask you to." That answer told me more than she intended. Helen's living room looked exactly as it had when I was a child. Same piano, same framed photographs, same clock ticking too loudly when nobody wanted to speak. Claire sat on the sofa beside Aunt Ruth. Uncle David stood near the window. Mom sat in her usual chair. Beside Claire was an empty dining chair. Thomas was not there. His chair was. On the coffee table sat one typed page. No letterhead, no lawyer's name, just something the family had written together. It said the situation may have involved a misunderstanding, that the family requested privacy, and that the matter was being addressed through appropriate channels. It did not ask me to deny the medical findings. That would have been too obvious. It asked for something softer. My name beneath a version of events vague enough to weaken everything else. For 30 minutes, they talked. Claire's marriage, Thomas's career, the whispers at church, her floral business losing clients if people kept talking, our father's name, the family's reputation, who had told whom, what people in Millhaven were saying. Nobody mentioned Lily's nightlight. Nobody mentioned that she had started asking who would be in a room before she entered it. Finally, I asked, "Has anyone asked how Lily is sleeping?" The room stopped. Aunt Ruth looked at her hands. Uncle David looked toward the window. Claire blinked. Mom stared at the paper. I counted 5 seconds. Then I looked at the empty chair beside my sister. "You saved him a chair!" Nobody answered. Nobody even remembered hers. Mom's mouth tightened. "This meeting is about protecting everyone." "No," I said. "It's about making what happened small enough that everyone else can stay comfortable." Helen slid the statement toward me. "Sign it, Mara, then let the professionals do what they're going to do, and let this family stop destroying itself in public." I looked at the blank line waiting for my name. Every chart I had signed in 11 years meant something specific. I saw this. I documented this. My name was not decoration. I pushed the page back. "I sign charts. I don't sign stories people need to be true." Claire started crying. Mom did not. I stood, took my coat, and left without slamming the door. 2 days later, a thick envelope arrived by certified mail. The return address belonged to an attorney representing Thomas Wade. Across the top of the first page were 3 words I had never expected to see attached to my name: cease and desist. The cease and desist letter was written to make me afraid before I reached the second paragraph. Thomas Wade's attorney accused me of making statements that had damaged his client's reputation and warned me not to make further defamatory claims. The problem was that I had made no public claims at all. I had spoken to a doctor, a child protection worker, a detective, and the people assigned to investigate what happened. That was it. Still, the letter worked for about 10 minutes. My hands shook. Then I paid for an hour with an attorney in the next town. She read the letter, asked what I had posted online, and looked almost relieved when I said nothing. "Keep doing that," she said. She told me to speak only where I needed to speak, not argue on social media, preserve every record, and let the investigation move through the proper channels. Do not let someone else's fear make you careless with your own words. I went home, wrote the date I received the letter in the corner, punched 3 holes through it, and placed it in the binder. Paper did not make me brave, but it gave fear somewhere to sit. A few days later, I ran into Marjorie Ellis at the grocery store. She had known my mother through church for 20 years. When she saw me near the produce section, I prepared for sympathy wrapped around a question. Instead, she stopped at her cart and said, "I don't need details. Is Lily getting what she needs?" "Yes," Marjorie nodded. "Then the rest of us can survive being uncomfortable." That was all. She moved on toward the apples. I stood there holding a bag of carrots and realized how badly I had needed one person from that world to prove the problem was not church, prayer, or community. The problem was what people chose to protect with them. Helen came to my house 3 evenings later, alone. She did not ask to come inside. She stood on the porch beneath the light and kept both hands wrapped around her purse. "I'm going to tell you something," she said. "And I don't want you using it against your father." I said nothing. She was 26, she told me, when her marriage went through what she called a bad year. One night she drove to her mother's house and said she could not go back. My grandmother made tea. Then she told Helen that marriages had private seasons, that respectable families did not invite outsiders into every ugly moment, and that she should go home before people started asking questions. So Helen went home, not because everything became better, because she had been taught that staying was what good women did when leaving would embarrass everyone. "I built a life after that," she said. "I raised you girls. Your father changed. We had good years." I believed her. That was what made the story harder, not easier. She looked at me. "Do you think I failed you?" I took a long time before answering. I think somebody failed you first. Her face changed. For a second, she looked less like my mother than a young woman who had once stood on somebody else's porch, hoping to be told she could stay. I wanted to reach for her. I almost did. Then I thought of Lily asking whether telling the truth would make us stop being a family. But what happened to you doesn't get to decide what Lily has to survive. Helen's eyes closed briefly. You make everything sound so simple. Simple isn't the same thing as easy. Neither of us spoke. And then I understood something I had missed. My mother was not protecting Thomas only because Claire loved him. She was protecting the rule that had organized her entire life. Keep private things private. Endure. Make the family survive. Because if that rule was wrong, then she had to ask what all that endurance had cost her. I could feel compassion for that question. I could not let Lily pay the answer. For the first time, I understood that silence could be inherited without anyone ever calling it an inheritance. Helen stepped off the porch. Before reaching the stairs, she turned back. Someday they'll give you a way to end this quietly. She paused. When they do, I hope you know what it's going to cost if you say no. Then she walked to her car, leaving me with the terrible feeling that she was not threatening me. She was warning me from experience. For the first 2 weeks after the interview, I called what I was doing caution. Then Lily called it something else. I canceled a sleepover because I did not know the other child's father well enough. I said no to a birthday party because the guest list included 2 families I had never met. I started checking Lily's location whenever Aaron took her anywhere, even though he had never given me a reason not to trust him. I rearranged my shifts. I asked more questions. Who will be there? How long? Which adults? What room? What time are you coming home? At first, Lily answered. Then she started sighing. One Thursday evening, she asked if she could go to Zoe Parker's house after school the following week. I asked who would be home. Her mom. Anyone else? I don't know. Then no. Lily stared at me. Mom, I'm not the one who did something wrong. The sentence landed harder than anger would have. I looked at my daughter and realized I had spent weeks trying to build a world in which nothing unexpected could reach her. But a world with no uncertainty is not a safe world. It is a locked one. At my next parent session, Lily's counselor listened while I described the canceled plans and the schedules I had rewritten. Then she said, "Safety and control can look similar when you're frightened." I hated the sentence because I recognized myself inside it. If I turned every doorway into a checkpoint, Thomas would still be making decisions about Lily's life, just from farther away. So I started small. Zoe came to our house one Saturday. The next month, Lily was invited to Zoe's birthday party at a bowling alley. I spoke with her mother, confirmed the plan, and dropped Lily off. Then I drove away. I did not sit in the parking lot for 3 hours. That counted as progress. Around the same time, the district's internal records review began producing answers. Dana was contacted by an investigator and asked to provide the original emails she had saved. The complaint had not disappeared. No one had shredded anything. No principal had secretly ordered a file destroyed. The truth was quieter. 2 years earlier, Dana's concern had been categorized as a coaching conduct issue. An assistant principal had spoken with Thomas and reminded him about appropriate physical boundaries with players. Then the matter was closed. No one had escalated it as a possible child safety concern. No formal referral had followed. When Dana told me, I sat at my kitchen table reading the wording again. Coaching conduct. Appropriate boundaries. Matter addressed. Nobody needed a conspiracy. They had simply made the problem smaller until it fit inside the drawer they already had. That frightened me more than a cover-up would have. A cover-up requires people to know they are hiding something. Minimizing lets everyone go home believing they handled it. I thought about my mother. Families have bad seasons. Private problems stay private. Then I thought about the school. Coaches get intense. Boundaries need reminders. Different vocabulary, same shrinking. Take the thing that makes everyone uncomfortable. Rename it. Reduce it. File it somewhere harmless. By then, the state educator investigation had also moved forward. Thomas remained out of the classroom, and his attorney had begun discussing a negotiated resolution with the licensing authorities. Nothing was final yet, but the possibility was real. Thomas could accept serious professional discipline without forcing the matter through a full contested hearing. When my attorney explained that to me, I felt something I had not trusted myself to feel in weeks. Relief. For one dangerous minute, I imagined Saturdays returning, with no folders on tables and no phone buzzing after midnight. Maybe this could end without another room, another microphone, another person asking Lily's name. Maybe the system had finally become strong enough that I could stop holding every piece of it together myself. That evening, I looked at the calendar on the refrigerator and saw Zoe's birthday written in Lily's purple marker. For once, I did not add another note beneath it. I thought the ending was finally coming into view. I did not yet understand that Helen was about to take that word, ending, and turn it into an offer I would want badly enough to fear myself. By early winter, Thomas was no longer teaching in Millhaven. The criminal matter had been resolved in a way that matched the findings investigators had documented. A no-contact order protecting Lily remained in place. His employment with the district had ended, and the state educator case was moving toward a permanent professional consequence. Nothing about it felt triumphant. Claire had stopped calling me, though once a week she sent a message asking whether Lily needed anything. I never answered the question she was avoiding, whether loving a child after choosing against her was enough to restore the place she once held. I did not know the answer yet. There was no moment when I opened a letter and suddenly felt lighter. But the thing I had wanted from the beginning was finally true. Thomas was not coming back into Lily's life. I thought that should have been enough. Then the district announced an independent review of how Dana's complaint had been handled 2 years earlier. A public board session was scheduled for January. Dana planned to attend. I received a formal invitation to provide testimony about the timeline of Lily's case and how the earlier complaint became relevant. Attendance was not mandatory. That distinction mattered more than I expected. I could stay home. The review would still happen. Dana's emails would still exist. Thomas's professional case would still move forward, for the first time since September. I had a choice that was not about keeping Lily physically safe. Helen called 3 nights after the notice arrived. She did not begin with an apology. She began with information. Claire and Thomas were preparing to leave Millhaven. Thomas's career in the district was over. "He's gone," Mom said. I said nothing. "Lily is safe." That was true too. Then her voice softened. "Don't turn what the school did wrong into something the whole town has to watch us bleed through." I closed my eyes. Helen told me that if I stayed away from the public session, we could begin again slowly, not pretend nothing happened. She was careful to say that, but begin. Lily could see her under whatever boundaries I required. Sunday dinners did not have to disappear forever. Claire could send letters or birthday gifts without expecting answers. "We can stop making every relationship pass through this one thing," Mom said. It was not a threat. That was what made it dangerous. It was the closest thing my mother knew how to offer as reconciliation, and I wanted it. I pictured Helen waiting outside Lily's school on a Wednesday afternoon. I pictured Christmas with familiar dishes on the table, frozen yogurt after the library, a family gathering where nobody lowered their voice when I walked into the room. A life in which I did not have to explain why half my relatives no longer had access to my daughter. I did not think, never. I thought, maybe, that frightened me more. Later that evening, Lily sat at the kitchen table drawing a map of an imaginary island while I sorted mail. Without looking up, she asked, "Did the grown-ups at his school know he was mean to kids before me?" I stopped. One parent tried to tell them something before. Lily drew another line around the island. Did they believe her? I looked at my daughter and realized I did not have an answer simple enough to give a 7-year-old. That night, after she went to bed, I took a sheet of notebook paper and drew a line down the middle. On the left, I wrote, "Stop now, Lily safe, Thomas gone, Mom may be back, family, partly restored." On the right, I wrote, "Continue, Dana's warning acknowledged. The district explains its decision. The next complaint might be treated differently." I stared at the 2 columns until the words blurred. Everything on the left belonged to people I loved. Everything on the right belonged mostly to people I might never meet. That was the part Helen had not said out loud. She was offering me almost everything I wanted. All I had to do was decide that what happened outside my own house was no longer mine to carry. At 11:18 p.m., I opened the investigator's message. My thumb hovered over the screen. Then I typed 4 words, "I'll be there." The district review took place in a room smaller than the ones television teaches people to expect. There were 2 rows of folding tables, microphones clipped to black stands, lawyers with yellow pads, district representatives, an independent reviewer, and a few board members seated beneath a clock that ran 3 minutes fast. Public chairs filled the back wall. Dana sat near the aisle with a folder in her lap. My mother sat 3 seats behind her. I did not know whether Helen had come to support me, to witness the damage, or to hope I would still change my mind. Dana testified first. Dana's hands trembled only once. When the reviewer asked whether she had received a follow-up call, she said no. Then she looked toward me, not triumphantly, but like someone hearing an old doubt answered. Her emails were entered into the record one by one. The assistant principal who had handled her complaint 2 years earlier did not deny them. He said the concern had been treated as a coaching matter because the information available at the time did not appear to meet the threshold for something more serious. The reviewer asked, "Why wasn't it escalated for a child safety assessment?" He paused. He talked about context, incomplete information, and the difficulty of making decisions in real time. None of those answers were absurd. None of them were enough. There was no villain at the table. That was almost worse. The system was reading its own handwriting out loud, and the words sounded smaller in public than they must have sounded when someone first decided they were sufficient. Then they called my name. I carried my binder to the table and set it in front of me. For months, I had treated that binder like armor, medical records, dates, phone logs, copies of notices, the attorney's letter. Every page had once felt like proof that I was allowed to trust what I knew. I opened only the first section. I gave dates. Sunday evening, the medical evaluation the next night, the mandated report, the forensic interview, the security recording from my porch, the changes I had observed in Lily afterward. I did not describe Thomas as cruel. I did not call my family cowards. I did not need adjectives. The facts already had verbs. When the recording was referenced and then played for the room, I heard Thomas's voice again. "Stop crying. You know the rule." Behind me, a chair moved. I looked back. Helen was standing. She picked up her purse, buttoned her coat, and walked toward the door without looking at me. For 1 second, every part of me wanted to follow. The daughter in me moved before the mother in me stopped her. I stayed seated. The door closed. Later. One of the attorneys asked whether conflict within my family had influenced my decision to continue participating after Lily was already protected. I thought about Helen's kitchen, Claire's messages, the empty chair at the family meeting. Then I said, they kept telling me not to make it about me. Eventually, I realized they were right. It was never about me. Nobody spoke for several seconds. That was enough. There was no verdict that afternoon. I drove home, made dinner, checked Lily's homework, and went to work the next morning. Weeks later, the decisions arrived separately. The state educator matter was finalized with a permanent disciplinary outcome on Thomas's record. It did not magically prevent every future employer in every state from making its own decisions. But the discipline would not disappear just because he changed an address. The district released recommendations from the independent review. Staff received new training on escalation. Reports involving physical boundaries and student safety required a clearer review path. The administrator who had handled Dana's complaint was reassigned from supervisory responsibilities. No one was marched out of the building. No dramatic speeches were made. The change looked mostly like new procedures, signatures, and people being required to ask one more question than they had asked before. A week later, I found a cream-colored note card in my mailbox. Helen's handwriting, 4 words. You made your choice. I read it once. I did not feel angry. I thought, yes. I placed the card inside the binder and closed it. For a while, I believed that was where the story ended. Then, a few months later, Lily did something so small no board would ever record it. And I finally understood that the hearing had never been the place where the cycle truly broke. 6 months later, Claire and Thomas were living 2 states away. Claire had not lost everything. She sold her share of the floral business to her longtime partner and moved with Thomas after his employment, and professional consequences became final. She still emailed sometimes, birthdays, holidays, once, a photograph of a house I did not recognize. I answered almost none of them, not because I wanted to punish her, because access was no longer something our family received automatically. Helen never gave me the apology I once imagined I needed. On Lily's 8th birthday, a card arrived in my mother's handwriting. $20 inside, 3 sentences about school, weather, and how tall Lily must be getting. Lily read it twice. Do I have to call Grandma? No, she thought about that. Can I send her a thank you card? If you want. That became the rule in our house. Not never, not always. If you want, Jenna started meeting me for coffee every few weeks. She never tried to explain away her silence in the family group chat. One morning she said, I should have asked about Lily sooner. Yes, I said. Her eyes dropped. Then I added, thank you for asking now. We did not become close overnight. Trust, I learned, grows better when nobody keeps digging it up to see whether the roots have formed. The navy sweatshirt came back after it was no longer needed. I put the bag on the kitchen table and asked Lily what she wanted to do with it. She shrugged, wash it, and then donate it. Somebody might need a sweatshirt. So we washed it. No ceremony, no speech. It became clothing again, by spring. The calendar on our refrigerator looked different too. There were still doctor appointments and school reminders. But one Saturday morning, I found Lily writing in purple marker, Zoe's sleepover, Saturday. My first instinct was immediate. Who will be there? Which adults? What time? I asked the reasonable questions. Then I stopped. Okay, I said. Lily looked surprised. Then she smiled and drew a tiny star beside the word Saturday. A few weeks later, we were leaving a church community lunch when a distant relative bent toward Lily with open arms. "Come give me a hug." Lily took half a step back. Then she looked at me, not frightened, checking. "You can say no," I told her. Lily turned back. "No, thank you." The man looked embarrassed for a second. Then he lowered his arms. "Okay." And that was it. Nobody shouted. Nobody accused her of being rude. No family broke apart. We walked to the car that evening. Lily sat at the kitchen table explaining a prehistoric sea creature to me in exhausting detail. She wore a yellow sweatshirt she had picked herself, unzipped because the kitchen was warm. My binder was in the hall closet. The refrigerator held Lily's calendar, dentist, birthday party, school trip, sleepover. I used to write everything down because I believed that someday someone might force me to prove what was true. Now I wrote things down because there were futures worth remembering. The cycle had not broken in a hearing room. It broke when my daughter said no. Someone listened, and the world kept going. If this story stayed with you, tell me where you think love ends and responsibility begins. Does forgiveness require giving someone access again? Or can compassion exist beside a closed door? Share your thoughts below. And if you believe family stories can hold both consequences and healing, subscribe for the next one here on this channel.